If you take that risk of vulnerability and
Mhm.
you're truly authentic,
Mhm.
it's usually, not always, but usually met with vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very contagious thing.
Yeah.
So in this series, we're examining the attachment themes strewn throughout the FX Hulu show, The Bear. We will be discussing in detail each episode as the story unfolds, so that you can watch or rewatch before you listen and then follow along with our discussion. We have seen all the episodes, but we won't discuss any content beyond the episodes we're discussing. So if you haven't seen the show, press pause now, go watch, and hop back on to the podcast.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for having me.
Likewise.
Does that work that way? Now we are back and we're getting back into it. Excited to talk about season 2, episode 1 of The Bear and all the attachment loveliness that we find in it. How about you?
Yeah, I had the experience of having to rediscover how much I loved the second season.
Yeah.
And have forgotten so much that is in there. So, and I'm always more excited just to hang out with you, Michael.
Just to hang out.
Yeah.
Have a drink. Cheers. And to talk life, talk attachment. I was gonna say politics, but I don't like talking politics. So yeah, and you talked about earlier how this is an interesting episode because it really is kind of defining purpose, defining focus. And that's something that I've wanted to do with our podcast.
Yeah.
In itself.
Yes.
So as we continue to do this thing, as we continue to grow, hopefully get better.
Yeah. Evolve.
Sure. Yeah, we're still figuring it out. But I don't know where I'm going with this, and this is not fun to listen to.
Well, you were just getting launched right into the episode.
Yeah.
But as per tradition, we usually talk about the cocktail that you made.
I didn't make a cocktail this time.
But you did certainly provide libations.
I did. And actually I did for the purpose of, I did a wine because I feel like the episode's about to get fancy.
Oh, sure.
And so we're doing fine dining tonight with a nice glass of wine.
Oh, yeah. And your lovely little Provençal board. Am I pronouncing?
I don't know what the word that is.
You know, like very French countryside, Italian countryside, heirloom tomatoes, salt, pepper, olive oil.
Love a little charcuterie.
Some cured meats.
Yeah.
And a nice cheese.
Mm-hmm.
And a glass of red wine.
Yeah.
So in this case, it is the makers of Dao.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce that? So
I think so.
DAOU.
Mm-hmm. And it is their line called Pessimist. Has a great quote on the back that I can't think of right now. But if you ever get a bottle of the Pessimist.
Yeah, the Pessimist is never disappointed.
Yes, there it is. Look at you. Knowing things. Yeah.
I literally just read it.
It's a great bottle. My wife and I have really enjoyed it. We like most of the Dow line.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise.
So.
And it's from Paso Robles. So that's one of our favorite wine
regions in California.
Yeah. Southern, mid-southern.
Awesome.
It's not the Napa. It's not Sonoma. It's not Russian River. It's Paso Robles.
It's its own spot.
We happen to have honeymoons there. It's fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Y'all just had an anniversary too, right?
Yeah, we sure did.
Awesome.
30 years.
Oh, my goodness.
30 years. That's crazy.
Oh, that's crazy.
Well,
but congratulations.
Thank you. It was all me.
All you. You kept you together. Uh-huh. I'm sure she had nothing to do with it.
Nope, none.
Shout out, Gab.
So,
all right. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, it's
season 2, episode 1, named Beef. Any insights in that?
No, I was reflecting on how
just very, very beefy.
It's we're not talking about us. We're talking about the show. The episode's called Beef. It's not even The Beef, but the restaurant is The Beef. And it just seemed pretty on the nose, as opposed to all the other episodes in season 1 seemed to have such interesting layered meanings.
Double meanings, yeah.
In this episode, we don't find lots of beefing with one another. They're
the exact opposite.
Yeah, in fact. So it's an interesting, I think, observation, but we could be totally wrong. And
I'm sure we are. I'm sure someone had a purpose for the name. We just haven't discovered it yet.
Yeah. And Reddit was not helpful in discovering some other meanings to it.
Yeah.
Reddit in general is not all that helpful for humanity in some ways. That's my hot take.
Mm-hmm.
So there is such a gorgeous opening scene, or early in the episode, where
Marcus?
No, I was going to talk about Cousin. Is in the basement. They can't find Cousin. Where is he?
It's down in the basement.
He's down in the basement. He's still in the basement. Yeah, he's in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's in this sort of dark room,
being very reflective
and somber, and full of his insecurities.
Yes, just swimming in them.
Yeah.
Not knowing who he is, what he's doing, why he's doing it, how he belongs, if he belongs, who wants him.
Yeah.
I mean, really going down the dark pit.
Or finally being honest with himself and being very tender and vulnerable with where he's always been, and maybe where he's been fighting against, and masking, and
not really leaning into.
Yeah.
And he takes a risk to ask Carmi, can we talk? Can I share this? I forget how he exactly says it. He says it in a very cousin way. And then Carmi says, I don't have time for this. But then quickly, and in such a great attuned way, says, no, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me hear it.
He sort of sobers up.
Yeah. And comes to reality. Oh.
Comes to sit.
Someone I love.
Pays attention.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're hurting. They need me to stop.
They need me to have time for this.
And he did a great job. Yeah, I was really proud of Carmi in doing so. And he genuinely listened. It wasn't just like, okay, hurry up with this. But as soon as he tuned in to what Cousin was saying, he really slowed down and was just present with him. Seemed like all the rush of everything else went away.
Or he at least gave the viewers, us, and maybe Cousin, the perception that all those other cares don't matter, aren't existing, and that all that really matters is this moment, you, the person I'm with.
You don't ever do that, do you? Just give the perception only?
Well, because it is just perception.
It is, you're right.
Right? In terms of the complexity, those things still are important.
Yeah, they don't actually go away. All that stuff still exists.
Yeah.
The pressure.
Yeah. What I was thinking about is in terms of the way in which we give as attentive, present, available caregivers to infants and toddlers and children, but especially infants and toddlers. We give them the illusion, we give them the perception that the world revolves around
that they are the center.
That they are the center of the world.
Right.
And that we as caregivers don't have our own subjectivities and our own needs and our own complexes, because we compartmentalize them, we set them aside, and attune to the world of the infant and fill our minds with.
True attunement, because the infant and toddler mind does see the world as revolving around them.
Yes.
They are the center.
Yes.
And so you are truly attuning to entering into being with their mind, their world. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in some way, Carmi gives Cousin that experience, that illusion or that perception that
you're what matters right now.
And that you're the only thing that matters right now. Even though there are multiple things that are mattering at the moment.
Right.
But when I say perception, I don't mean that it's not real.
Right.
Right.
It's more of a yes and.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what Richie does there, cousin, he gets really vulnerable and he's struggling with what's his purpose?
Yeah.
What is this for? What am I for?
What anchors me?
Mm-hmm.
Who do I belong to?
And are you going to throw me away? Do I belong here?
Mm.
And that's been a running thing throughout the show, right? You've talked about, you've pointed out several times that that seems really blaming. You've pointed
You did
out several times,
what I do.
unknowingly, that he's not Italian,
Oh, right.
and he's not family.
Yeah.
He's not a cousin,
Yeah.
but he's still treated and represented as part of the family, part of the system.
Yeah. Whether that really sinks in to cousin, whether that's
Mhm.
really anchoring or not. And this episode, I think we see just how non-tethered, despite being called cousin, despite being so involved, despite
Mhm.
being so um um a kind of togetherness.
Mhm.
Uh it didn't have a place in cousin to actually anchor him into the family. Because that's the danger and the part of the problematic nature of insecurity of attachment, even if it's adaptive in our infancy, that we're adapting to our environment,
Mhm.
it leaves us without an anchoring capacity.
Right.
We have an inability or a difficulty with feeling and knowing in a sort of established, secure way that we belong.
Yeah. Being fully grounded,
Yeah.
secure. Yeah.
Yeah. But we see a moment where they're trying to repair that.
Right.
Or Carmi's trying to affirm and repair. And
Well, and that's what I found really interesting about this conversation between them is you have two insecure classifications
yeah, in our minds.
opposing,
Yep.
coming together. And Richie is he's at a really low spot. I think we talked about in a previous episode or a couple episodes, like he's hitting his rock bottom.
Yeah.
Which typically puts us in really vulnerable places.
Sure.
And he takes a big risk there
Yeah.
to reveal his inner world and what he's thinking about, what's going on. And what I love about this episode, this scene that represented that or what's represented in it, is that vulnerability, risk taking, is contagious.
Mm-hmm.
That as cousin really leans into that, sits into his vulnerability, shares it, expresses it. You see Carmi reflect it, and able to enter into it himself.
Yeah, his own vulnerability.
Right, which normally you're not seeing from him, from the dismissive avoidant.
Mm-hmm.
You're not seeing that. Hey, let me just swim around and reveal.
Yeah.
Because normally it's no, I don't share this because it's going to burden you. But in this case, it apparently didn't seem like it was going to be a burden. In fact, it seemed like it was going to be different if I share and reveal this. And Carmi ends up revealing, this shit isn't fun for me. What I do, being a cook, being a chef, like running the whole business. And it just opens up this interesting dialogue between the two of them, where Carmi's able to reveal, he's revealing his own struggle of not being grounded, that he's doing all this basically not to be a burden. That's how I view it.
Sure.
He's doing the classic dismissive. He's achieving, he's doing, but it's not what he loves. And so I think he's revealing that he doesn't have a true purpose yet either.
Yeah.
I think that's where he's joining.
Yeah. They're really maybe sharing the same story, but in very different ways.
Yeah.
That Carmi doesn't really feel like he belongs to the restaurant either. Not in that full heart, wholehearted way.
Yeah.
That he doesn't belong to the profession in that wholehearted way either. Articulates it differently.
Yeah. But when you think of his backstory, like he did this to get back as his brother.
Sure.
To prove he could do it. I'll show you.
Yeah, because he was hurt.
Yep. So yeah, it's really, I think that's something that I would like to share with all my clients and really get them grounded in, is that if you take that risk of vulnerability and you're truly authentic, it's usually, not always, but usually met with vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very contagious thing.
Yeah. That's lovely. Yeah. Security begets security.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this, but this just came to mind. Or we sort of talked about it a little bit. That same two characters, it's Carmi and Cousin, but they are in this rather aggressive, hurtful conversation about belongingness. Again, purpose in another kind of form, in, I think, a refrigerator. And it's the, I've been taking care of this restaurant and I've been taking care of your family and I belong here and this is mine and don't mess with the routine. And Carmi's quip of, why didn't my brother leave the restaurant then to you, if this is so much yours? This is, and so they're having the same, in some ways, these are the same conversation.
They are. One's led with hostility
and defensiveness and insecurity and
which evokes defensiveness, insecurity.
That's right.
And the same.
And it's escalating and it's hurtful.
That's a really good point. They are the same conversation, but just driven or started at.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that.
Well, they bring a different quality.
Right.
And they're bringing a vulnerability. Especially Richie is bringing that vulnerability, that tenderness.
Right. Yeah. He didn't enter in. He entered. Maybe vulnerability can be looked at as this, an essence of security.
Agreed.
Right, I mean, there, like he led with that.
What's her name's work? Brene Brown.
Oh, okay.
That vulnerability is strength. Yeah. Vulnerability is courage. Vulnerability is security.
And in the other conversation in the refrigerator, it's led with his insecure attachment.
Yes.
It's led with the anxious, preoccupied.
Yes. It's led with threat.
Right.
It's led with, the threat is outside of me. It's not inside me. It's threat of limited resources.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where else did you see purpose?
Yeah. So I thought there was such a contrasting and an unnamed purpose. And with security of attachment, it's often I think it's a phrase of the known unknown. In the opening scene, we have Marcus embodying purpose. And we see Marcus living out his love and his tenderness and his vulnerability. And his mother's vulnerability as he's tending to the body present in a way that is just beautiful. And that I thought that purpose was such an interesting contrast. That when, as we've talked about Marcus being securely attached, he lives out of his purpose very fluidly, very naturally, almost effortlessly, even though we know that it's effort. We know that it's taxing and one must rest and get support. But Marcus seems to be relying on his support. It's, I think, his roommate that, right, like ends up taking a shift and attending to her. And that allows him then to fill his other purpose, which is to work and provide for himself and find meaning in his work and
to be creative and play.
Yeah. And so I see purpose there, but it's unnamed and it doesn't have to go named because it's so
lived, embodied.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with secure attachment.
That's right. And whether that's fair or not, it's not fair, right?
It's not fair. Sure.
It's, we get the cards that were dealt. Every generation does. And it's why we are invested in security of attachment in our patients, in ourselves, in the community, in our structures, in our systems, because it makes living easier, including under some very difficult circumstances, which Marcus is living under.
Mm.
The difficult circumstance of his mother being so ill.
Yeah. Yeah, he's so tender with her. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we can maybe lead to the next sort of theme there.
What other themes are you seeing in this episode?
Well, I think a lot of what we've just been talking about and the scenes that we're talking about lead to the idea of collaboration.
Yes.
Collaboration, togetherness, cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
In contrast to that fight that Carmi and cousin are having, they're having a much more collaborative conversation.
Right.
It's not anti you, anti me. It's not you against me, me against you. And you see Marcus embodying the collaboration of his community and his community collaborating with him. And security of attachment is both formed in a collaborative caregiving milieu
Mm-hmm.
and enables collaboration as an attitude, as a behavior, as a stance.
Okay. Sorry, my mind it went a little backwards to, and we didn't talk about this, so it's gonna be a hot take on resources. How this episode is really coming off of, like we notice the drastic difference of tension and clashing in arguments, a non-collaborative environment in a lot of ways.
Yeah, in season one.
In season one,
Yeah,
now we're in season two, and it starts with collaboration.
yeah,
What we know has happened is that they have resources.
yeah,
The big stressor of the family has been answered in a way. They're able to pay back a loan. Like sure, like we know they need more because they're going to talk to uncle, but this pending $340,000 worth of debt and maintaining and keeping the restaurant going is all of a sudden gone.
yeah,
And mysteries of family secrets are now answered and gone. And so a lot of like the idea of, I think what I'm wanting to ask you and maybe us to just talk about is how much does having resources, whether it's money, access to childcare, um, things of that nature,
mm-hmm,
have to do with attachment
mm-hmm,
and our ability to collaborate.
mm-hmm.
Are we able to collaborate when we don't have the resources
Yep,
necessary?
yep. Well, I want to answer that very delicately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to be as clear as I possibly can be. And I'm aware that maybe for some listeners, it might be difficult or challenging to truly hear what it is that I'm actually saying
Mm.
because um, because of their own insecurity of attachment and because this is, I think, a really gorgeous but complex question.
Very complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is an idea that perhaps they wouldn't have discovered the hidden money
Mm-hmm.
in these tomato cans. Yeah. Thus relieving a stressor and now having a kind of resource.
Mm-hmm.
There's an idea that they may have not discovered it had they not been moving in our conversation. The system and these characters are moving towards security.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving toward collaboration. They're moving toward organization and coherence. They're moving toward clarity and
Mm-hmm.
they're starting to say what they mean and mean what they say. They're starting to find purpose and in their work. Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
that was all happening all the way from episode 1 through 9 into 10 when they find the money.
Right.
So there is an aspect that they're resourced because they're secure. That security of attachment makes it easier to find the resource.
To find resources, right?
Yeah.
To see them, therefore to access them.
Yes, to recognize them, to sense them, even if it's not entirely conscious, to somehow find yourself in certain situations that resource you, being at the right time, at the right place, with the right people, sort of unconsciously, and other times very intentionally. So I don't know that they are secure because they have the resource, as much as they have the resource because they were moving towards security.
Okay.
That's one idea. And that's part of what makes security beget security, and insecurity beget more insecurity. It's insidious that way.
So what about in real life?
And so what we can see is that you can be profoundly resourced, yet profoundly insecurely attached.
Sure.
Individuals in marriages and families that are highly resourced financially, access to quality health care, quality mental health care, the absence of threat from neighbors and crime, the absence of threat of war, and a stability of being able to access clean water, and like all those sorts of things, does not in any way predict security of attachment. The only thing that really predicts security of attachment is security of attachment from caregivers.
Right.
Yet we recognize that chronic stress challenges and stretches our security of attachment capacities. And so when you're under the chronic stress of poverty, it can make it challenging.
Yeah, because I'm even thinking poverty. Yes, the kind of my mind is if it's use words is exhaustion. So not getting good sleep.
Yeah.
Being overextended at work. Not having family to help take care of children, and so you're coming home right away, and going from job to caregiving. That type of exhaustion that just keeps going.
Yes.
So the resource of time, energy, that I could see where that would make it hard to be compassionate, hard to extend security of attachment, much less be able to receive it.
I think, though, the research just doesn't vet it out as a most important variable. That the most important variable is still going to be the security of attachment, of which you're going to find in communities and in families that are not resourced.
Yeah.
And that they seem to weather those stressful, exhausting elements of their life in a different kind of way. And they seem to either create organizations or institutions. They access those resources and institutions. And if in my mind, there's nothing that more embodies that than the Black church, the historically Black church, as an institution that is under a political, cultural system of deprivation and resource denying, and here forms an institution that's going to create security, is going to help foster security, so that you can still develop and cultivate security of attachment in individuals and in marriages and in families and in communities, because you have a resource-rich institution like the Black church that may not be resource-rich in terms of large buildings and the wealth of
congregates.
Yeah. But your question's, I think it's a fair question. And we never want to blame a victim.
Sure.
Yet we can also see how we are victimized by our own victimization. and that we participate in that. But I think that's what some of the incredible insight about attachment is, that we find one of the most predictive variables or qualities that really, not life experiences, but this classification system seems to be the most powerful predictor about all sorts of outcomes in adult life. Um, Way more powerful than whether or not you were upper class, middle class, lower class, whether you had the chronic stress of ACEs, of adverse childhood experiences like divorces or moving or
being yelled at consistently, not knowing all those things. Well, and interesting enough, John Bowlby, whose father coined attachment, like he was from an aristocratic family.
Yes.
And so he learned most of this from his own life.
Yes.
And so the lack of caregiving he had from his own parents, but mostly from nannies. That's always interesting to me. So it came from a very affluent background.
Yeah, and only sort of matched by Ainsworth's research into, for example, Rwanda, where you're not going to have the aristocratic wealth of industrialized nations, but this is a colonized nation that is having its riches being plundered and stolen. Yet you have incredible template of security of attachment, right? And so it starts to poke at these ideas that in order to be happy, in order to be secure, in order to be psychologically well, one needs resources. It's not exactly that clear. It's not exactly that
equal.
Yeah, it's not one for one. What we really need is high quality caregiving, and we need to support all of what those caregivers need in order to provide that. And then what we need is healing.
Yeah.
We need the healing of our attachment wounds and
repair
disturbances.
All right, that was a good tangent. Let's move on to the rest of collaboration that we see within the episode. One area in which you pointed out was the trio of Sid, Carmi, and Sugar. Seem to be forming an alliance.
And working together. And in a way that we just weren't seeing in the first season. In the first season, we really see competition. We see orders giving. We see resistance, protests. And then here comes in the second season, first episode, that trio showing up to really come together and figure out how can we really make this work at a second blush, because 6 months doesn't sound like it's going to work. And even 1 month doesn't work either, but we got to figure out how to make it work. And for the first time, then you see the collaboration of, as they're sort of taking inventory of what needs replaced and what works and how things are going to cost. Like they're having a team meeting that feels way more mutual.
Yeah, it was surprising. I can't imagine ever going into a restaurant and seeing a line cook, dishwasher, having input,
French trained, or
all having input on how to build a restaurant. What's needed. But they were extremely collaborative. And inclusive.
Absolutely. And then also for the first time, I think we hear the word partner, and a partner in this restaurant. In this case, it's asking Uncle if he wants to be a partner. But that's just, it's a very different attitude shift. And different stances and behaviors that we see in contrast to the first episode or the first season of episodes. And security of attachment comes out of collaborative experiences between infant and caregivers and their communities and their support systems that then enable capacities to be collaborative, and cooperative and have a sense of togetherness.
Yeah.
And where you see insecurity of attachment, you see great difficulties with collaborative attitudes, or, the ability to engage in kind of behaviors that suggest I'm with you, eye contact, body language, these kind of behavioral things. Clear communication and meaning what you say and saying what you mean, as opposed to passive aggressive or vague, or
To know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows up in all of that all that way that we are clearly talking.
Yeah.
We're not talking in metaphors, and we're not talking around something. That fight that Carmi and
Cousin.
are having in the refrigerator is not a direct conversation. They're talking about whether or not we belong to one another in such an sort of direct kind of way. And here we
around
come
each
to the
other.
basement, and it's just like, I don't have purpose. Do I have purpose to you? Can we talk about it clearly together? It's like, that's what a collaborative way of having a conversation.
Yeah, I also see that moment, and in my office, I'll categorize them as corrective emotional experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those experiences on repeat welcome and invite collaboration. They invite security. But I think that's what we're saying here, is that we're noticing that collaboration and security go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're one and the same. Yep. Where there is security, there's collaboration. Where there's collaboration, there's security.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll talk about this really quick. In real life, what might collaboration look like as we're talking about relational dynamics, maybe within families? Like, so maybe like a parent and teenager. What might a collaborative mind look like? And I laugh because the trendy term right now that's going around is gentle parenting. And I have so many parents coming into session being like, yeah, but what when, yeah, gentle parenting, that's good. But when this happens, what do I do?
Yeah.
And it feels like gentle parenting isn't enough. And I don't think that's true, but I think they're struggling to be collaborative in the midst of that disconnection, of the rupture.
A sense of threat.
Yes. So let's make up a thing of,
sure,
school's about to start. We need to get to bed on time sooner. We got to get in a new routine. Can't play video games till midnight anymore because you have to get up by whatever ungodly hour kids get up these days. And the kids refusing, throwing a fit, saying no.
Protest.
Why can't I?
Yeah. Maybe talking back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How could a parent be collaborative?
Yeah. A parent can be collaborative when they take an attitude or a stance of, okay, my child is really trying to tell me something. And it may not be what they're telling me.
Never is.
And so I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to not go back up out of the basement and attend to this meeting with the rest of the staff. I'm going to stay in the basement as Carmi does. I'm going to stay and say, hey, what's going on? Tell me more. And I'm going to manage my own feelings of the disrespect that they just, disobeyed an order.
They just doled out, just making it rain with disrespect.
Absolutely. I'm going to manage my own reaction to that. And stay with the kid who's having some feelings, some big feelings. And I'm going to give the generosity of time. Because it may not be really about that I don't want to go to bed. It could be that the child is really anxious about going to school. They're anxious about friend groups. They're anxious about
where am I going to sit at lunch?
Romance. They're worried about changing in the lockers. They're worried about being bullied or teased. They're worried about the challenges of learning because maybe there's learning differences. I mean, they could be anxious about
so many things.
so many things. And then it may not really be about that I don't want to go to bed and I want to keep playing this game. And collaboration, an attitude of togetherness and cooperation. When we're not being cooperative, I want to figure out, well, why are we not being cooperative? Especially when it's a demarcation from your child's typical behaviors.
But we also just talked about security is collaboration. So therefore we're inferring that insecurity is protesting.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's not collaborating.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's an insecurity that exists if collaboration is not there.
Absolutely. And a collaborative attitude and stance in that caregiver and the parent is going to register that non-collaborative behavior as insecurity rather than disobedience, defiance, challenging my authority, questioning my integrity or my quality or my capacity of being a good parent. A collaborative attitude or a secure way of being in the world is not going to be caught up in all of those kinds of feelings or reactions, and it's going to say, hey, we clearly need to have a conversation, which may eventually, I would hope, should include, you're being really disrespectful. I came at you.
We don't deny it.
Yeah, I came at you respectfully. I gave you 10-minute warning. We talked about it earlier in the day. We've been talking about it a week. And I don't want to be spoken to be that way. I don't deserve to be spoken to that way. I mean, we can address that, but collaboration might also mean we're going to have that conversation later, and we're going to have a different one now, which is the one that you're clearly wanting to have with me by your protest behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to be curious.
Yeah, collaboration. I guess you can't be collaborative if there's not a humility, if there's not a curiosity, if there's not a wonder that maybe what isn't as it appears. And
yeah, it's sometimes the way I talk about it with my clients is like with an infant, we have this uncanny ability to be so curious because we don't have the language. But when the baby's screaming or crying, we're like, well, what is it? Are you gassy? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Did you sleep well? Are you teething? And we go through all this list of things. Yeah. And then when we get there, we go, oh, I can do that. We can do that.
Understand.
And we lose sight of that as language develops, I think.
Sure. And bodies get bigger and louder.
Right. And we think that they know what they're saying and it's clear, and it's not. Or even as a partner of equal age, that our partners have language that's clear and concise. And no, we have to be curious.
Yeah.
To really connect. Especially when you get that notion of, wait, we're not collaborative right now. What's happening? If we're not collaborative, oh, there's an insecurity. Oh.
Yes, I'm feeling threatened.
We had to go find the insecurity.
Or we have to attend to it.
Attend to it.
Yeah.
Find it, tend to it.
Yeah. I see it in the few couples that I do see. When the couple does not appear to be listening to one another, but rather sort of waiting for the other one to stop talking so that they can resume talking.
Yep.
Right. Or there's this presumption that they understand what the patient or the other person is saying, and sort of interrupting that process and asking, do you have any idea what they just said? Yeah, I totally understand.
I stopped, I listened.
Right, prove it to me. What did they just say? And it's off. It's wrong.
Way off. Yeah.
It's full of their own projections or their own concerns or their own mind. That's not a collaborative attitude or stance.
Yeah.
And that security of attachment is a capacity to know that you're slipping out of that attitude or out of that stance, or that you're slipping out of the even desire to even listen, or it's an awareness, as it happens today several times as we were preparing, that, I'm aware that I just left the conversation.
Yeah.
And something's disturbing me or bothering me, or I'm feeling threatened by something, or
which I can really appreciate you made room for today. Thank you for that.
Always. Which, right, there's a collaborative attitude, a collaborative stance of I might have feelings about that, but I can also assume a different kind of assumption that something's going on for you.
Yeah.
And it's not that you think that I dressed really poorly today and forgot my other
Oh my
outfit for the
gosh.
recording.
Mm-hmm.
Or
We're slumming it today.
Yeah.
I like this conversation. I think what I'm taking from it, and I haven't thought about in this way, that collaboration is security.
Yeah.
And that's a good anchor and something tangible to look for as well. I think that sometimes when we talk about secure attachment, it can be obscure of like, what is that unicorn? But this is something really tangible to hold on to, that if we're not collaborating, there's something between us. There's something missing. Something's not being attended to. So whether it's with a parent infant, parent teenager, friendship, coworker dynamic, or romantic partner.
There's a Kiswahili, the East African sort of trade language that many would speak in Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, that sort of Horn of Africa.
Where are you going?
There's a Kiswahili word called Harambe. And it's a concept of, hey, maybe the best translation is like, hey, y'all, let's get together and push. Let's get together and solve this. It's a collaborative call for problem solving. That is drenched in the culture. And so when I was living in Kenya, in Nairobi, I never saw anybody carry a bag by themselves. And I learned that they didn't actually necessarily know each other. They just happened to be walking together in the same direction. And so they would carry a bag that has, like 2 straps. They would each carry a strap, sharing the load of carrying something together. Harambe is just a culturally drenched concept that produces security of attachment. Harambe. And I don't know that we have that in our American English as much. Well, one word that does come to mind is like a barn raising, pulling from the Amish, where
I don't know where you came up with this stuff.
I just keep
it's flowing. Go. Yeah.
Just
keep
going.
it going.
So that you have that concept of we're all going to come together as a community, and we're going to build a barn today. Right. Like, and you can do that when you're resourced. And I don't think the Amish are known for how rich they are, although there's some maybe conspiracy theories of things. But what they are rich in is Harambe. They are rich in a collaborative attitude. They are rich in, we're going to do this together.
Yeah.
So just trying to underscore that collaboration is security, and security is collaboration.
Harambe. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. What a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for exploring.
Cheers.
Ding. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Oh, nice.